What's going on, MobiDoc fam? Today we are bringing to you a primer to get your hips to feel equal. Maybe you're experiencing some back pain. Maybe you feel like you can't get your left hip and your right hip to fire equally. Maybe it just feels like you're stuck on one side versus the other. The following primer is meant to mobilize, activate, and integrate or strengthen your left hip and your right hip into a larger movement. I'm Doc John from MobilityDoc, and we've been using this primer as part of our MDFit classes on our lower body day to prep our class for doing the strength movement of dumbbell RDLs. So the primer is meant to get your hips ready for the activity of your day. But we also give this primer to our patients and our athletes who are feeling off and they need something in just 10 minutes to get them ready. You're going to perform the hip primer like a circuit of 3 exercises for 3 rounds. You're going to do hip lifts, plank toe touches, and alternating RDLs. We're going to do 3 rounds of 10 total reps each for each of the 3 movements. Let's take a look at this primer. For the hip lifts, you're going to get down on the ground with me. I like to use a little bit of a mat or a cushion underneath my knees, so that way I'm not just driving my kneecaps into the ground below me. It's a good tip for those of you who maybe are less comfortable on your knees. You're going to kneel so that way my feet are pointed. I'm stretching a little bit through the front of my ankles even. The purpose of this movement is to get your hips to move and essentially almost no movement from your spine, and obviously your knees will move in this case too. So for the hip lift, you're going to come up from your glutes, squeeze fully at the top and down. So again, I am opening up my hips, squeezing my glutes, and down. Now, my spine is not moving at all. I am not extending or flexing through my lumbar spine, even in the slightest. Everything comes from flexion in the hip and extension in the hip, squeezing my glutes fully. Now, pay attention to, does it feel like you're twisting or turning or you're uneven and leaning? Are you able to squeeze both at the same time and feel like you're getting the same contraction? This is your opportunity to really check in with, are your left and right glutes firing at the same time? You're going to perform 10 movements of this exercise every single round. So for each of the 3 rounds, 10 movements. You can do more, but 10 repetitions is usually a sufficient number of repetitions to begin to feel like you're activating properly, and also you have 3 rounds of this. Let's take a look at the next movement. The second movement we're going to do is a plank toe touch, alternating which foot we're touching. You're going to begin in a plank position, just like so, and then you're going to reach towards your toe and come back, alternating sides. Focus on pushing your hips back, driving through the hand that's down and reaching fully through. Try not to flex or extend from your spine. Try not to bend at all anymore from your knees. As you push your hips back, reach through and resist rotating your pelvis. You're going to perform 10 reps for all 3 rounds of this. It will become easier to do. It'll help you to get better at moving from your hips without moving from your knees and your spine. For this final movement, we're going to do alternating RDLs. You can use dumbbells if you want to and if you feel proficient, but first move well, then move more. So start with body weight if you need to, then add dumbbells. Let's take a look at this. You're going to stand with your feet parallel. What you're going to do is you're going to step 1 foot forward, and then you're going to hinge from your pelvis and come up and back. So if I were to break this down, my feet were planted already, I would be doing a staggered stance RDL where I'm just pushing my hips back and forward, focusing on keeping my hips even, parallel to the floor, not having them rotate. Again, not moving from my spine at all and not moving my knees anymore. So at this point, my knees are locked at the position they're at and my spine does not change shape at all. But instead of just doing a staggered stance, static RDL, we're going to do alternating step, hinge, and back. Step, hinge, and back. Focus on what it feels like on each side as you step, hinge forward, and come back. Do you have the same amount of freedom and movement? Do you feel like your left side when it's forward is tighter, or that your hips are having to rotate more? You're going to perform 10 alternating steps like this. So during the 10 steps over the course of 3 rounds, and in conjunction with the primer or the triplet you're performing, you will get a sense of, does it feel like it's improving? And it will. And when that improves, so will your deadlifts, your squats, your running, the activities that you're doing that are actually the main events, the things that you like to do. This primer is meant to support your foundation. It's meant to support your activity, not replace it. So to recap, for the primer, we have 3 movements that you're going to do for 3 rounds. You have the hip lifts for 10 reps, you have the plank toe touches for 10 reps, and then you have alternating RDLs. You don't have to use weight for the RDLs, but you can. Perform 3 rounds and 10 total reps for each movement, and at the end of that, you'll be fully primed. Your hips will feel even, you will have less low back stiffness, less low back pain. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share. Help us to help more people.